Hi, everybody. You know who it is. It's me, RPG Grandma. Okay, so I watched a video. It was actually a critique of a video on another channel. I was like, oh, what's this? It was supposed to be on immersion. So somebody else was critiquing or watching the video on immersion for role playing games. And so I watched it. So I'm not going to rewatch it because it was the whole video. The title was Immersion for role playing games. And they were going to show us how. And it was terrain building. No, and I have nothing against terrain building. I love making models. So, of course, I'm cool with making mounds and pyramids and all kinds of stuff. And if you look around, there's like a slideshow of some things I've made on this channel. But, and I'm not saying the techniques were bad or anything like that. But it was like, okay, so the first thing they did was they brought out a dining room table and did terrible things to it. They drilled holes in it, and they sanded it, and they stripped it, and they refurnished it. I guess they put holes in there for maybe power cords. I don't know, but I'm watching them going, hey, that's my dining room table. It's like solid oak. So it's a really nice table that they destroyed. And it's super heavy. And the panels that go in it are super heavy. They're not, yeah, like there's lots of other tables I've had over the years, kitchen and dining room, that would have been easier to modify and less heavy to move around. And just saying, if I was going to do that, but why? Do we all have that extra huge room? I mean, I know I don't. I mean, some people might. Some of y'all might be set. And, I don't know. The kids moved out. My kids moved out, and the kids moved in. Niece and nephew. I'm RPG auntie to them. So, lost that extra space like that. Poof. So, and even if I had been using that extra space for a game room, it wasn't my bedrooms in my house. They're tiny. It's a 1960s house. It has a 1960s kitchen, 1960s bathrooms. It is tiny, tiny little bedrooms. And I go furniture shopping. All the furniture is humongous, and I'm like, not designed for my house, So this is a hefty table. Is what I'm getting at. That's why it's in my dining room. In fact, I don't even have a kitchen table. That's how little space I have in my house. So, you're going to eat at a table, you have to go to the dining room, which is also the music room, the gaming room, the crafting room, though we have some crafting stuff that's portable, and the taekwondo room. We have to move things around. When we set up for taekwondo, there's a bob and stuff in that front room. So yeah, it was also the science room. We had the homemade we built an incubator during quarantine. There's microscopes in there. There's all kinds of stuff. Petri dishes. Oh yeah. Yeah, when my kids when my niece and nephew got sent home, we looked at each other and said, "Oh no!" And so we just ordered science supplies, and there's telescopes with all kinds of stuff. There's a bicycle in there. So yeah, the multi-purpose room, which is really the dining room. So I'm telling you, those tables are huge, and I don't need. I have one of the expanding leaves in it. The others are in another room, and they're so heavy. You need like multiple people to move them. I was just like, wow, they're ruining my dining room table to make a gaming table. And I'm thinking to myself, that's like the heaviest one they could have picked. Why? Something lighter. Really. I used to have a kitchen table that it folded down automatically and then popped back up to make that extra space. That would have been a better choice. Just saying. If you're going to sit there and spend the time and effort to do all that to a table. But I'm still left with the question why. I mean, I've seen the setups, and so they're cool. I'm not. But for the average person, we're just like watching this stuff because we don't have an extra room and stuff like that. At least not anybody I know. So, or if you live in an apartment, see what I'm getting at? So, for ground, here's what I suggest. If you don't want to do battle mats, because the immersion thing wasn't about, it was about building stuff, which is cool. Tablecloths. They can function as two things: tablecloths and your terrain. They fold up. It's awesome. They're fabric. You can wash them. Always a plus, right? If you have people who spill stuff on your table, you can put those plastic vinyl ones down, and then you put the tabletop cloth on top. I know they don't have grids, but you could get a checkered one, probably, maybe. I have like a tan one. That's the desert. I have a red one. That's for some place like Mars. You know, if I'm not actually using it as a tablecloth, you know, these tablecloths. I have a green one, and yeah, they've got like, you know, thistle or something in the pattern. You know what? It doesn't take away. If you got your little army out there, you know, your little dudes, it doesn't take away because nobody's paying attention to the thistle. They're more concerned about tactically where something is. If you're doing the wargaming side of this hobby, because I put wargaming, and the true wargamers are going no, and fantasy role playing games kind of together, because there's that one point where they intersect or can. So I'm just telling you, save some money. Have things do double purpose. Heck, you can even throw down butcher's paper and then like draw out what you want. Just saying. So yeah, tablecloths, they're your friend. You don't have to ruin your dining room table or kitchen table. And once you start putting stuff on them. So I'm probably going to do some crafting things to show you guys some easy things, but here's some terrain elements. Where is it? There it is. Got to get it in front of the camera. The camera's over on this side here. Super lightweight. It makes it easy to move. They're very solid. A little squishy. This side, it's got like wood grain or even dirt. I did that on purpose. So it actually has to do this. It's a piece of cardboard, throwaway cardboard. I think from a Kellogg's cereal box that I glued on here and painted. So maybe I should show you guys how to make these. You can make them in different shapes. I have a bunch of these that are in different shapes. Some are just little squares. Some are higher, taller. I have multiples of these. I can make stairs with these. This wood grain / dirt. So I can have this on the inside of a wall instead of the rock. This can be the inside of a building, and while this is the outside, I can build a building with this. I can build caves with this. I can build temples with this. You see where I'm going with this? I can make all these things that kind of like Legos, like, you know, like that. Put the right wall piece there. You know, yeah, I know in real life it does that when you're looking at mortar work. But for the purposes of a game table, that's a wall. It's easy. And they're light. So if you have to take this stuff somewhere, they don't break. You don't have to have a 3D printer. So I'm gonna start putting up little tips. I'll have to figure out what I'm gonna do. I call a 3-dimensional terrain hat. So I made them out of these. Got these at the dollar store. I'm sure everybody has the equivalent of something like the dollar store. Start looking around. You're looking for foam counting blocks. And get an X-Acto knife. Cut them to the shapes you want. Get cheap craft paint. Big old thing of black, a big old thing of white. Unless you want to make this a different color. Then you like if you want to make it more like sandstones or something like that, or you're going to do like a red Mars thing, or you want to make a black pyramid, whatever. Okay, and maybe I'll make a pyramid. Put these together in a way that I can show you how they can be a pyramid, or I'll have to get away more. I don't have that many. Or make how many of these I have done and where I've got them on. I made a bunch of these. Or how you can make them into shapes and that they're a set shape, but then how you can use those shapes to create other things. All I did was cut, X-Acto knife where I wanted, cut out the general shape I needed. And then what I did was I got something to poke it with. Probably used a pencil, and I etched using a pencil or some little tool. I've got a bunch of little tools, but you can make it with pens and pencils easily. So I make the cracks because you can see the details. Those details aren't painted; they're poked in there to give it a little texture. The ends as well, so this can be an end piece if it needs to be like so. Let me see. And some of them are done up better than others. Some are more textured than others. And then I think I painted them black, and then I let them dry, and then I painted them with different shades of gray that I mixed with the same black paint and regular old jug of cheap craft paint. And because save your good paints for those minis. If you're doing minis, save your good paints for the detail work. Have the craft paints for terrain features, big terrain features. It's more cost effective. No one will know. And you can also take tin foil and I ball it up and squish it in here. And then, like I said, I glued Kellogg's on the bottom of them. And then painted after this was dry and glued and ready to go, then I painted layers of this to create a wood grate. The other reason I did that is, let's say I have a bunch of these outlining a tavern. So I'm not building a tavern, I just outlined the building, but on the inside I want a bar. I have an instant bar. The players are looking down. They get it. They you have a little few other little doohickeys in there and the little bar guy, and some little homemade tables. They know exactly what you're doing. Okay, this is so easy to do. You can make archways. Like you could cut out. You could have them pre-made in this. Where you don't have to put them together. Like you cut out this middle part here, you got a doorway. So yeah, counting blocks, foam counting blocks. You can build so much with them. See, and they because they're they don't take as much work as you would think to break them up into pieces. That is my first crafting tip. Because I watched an immersion video, at no point did they do immersion, but they did crafting. Also, they destroyed the same Lazy Susan I have, because they did the pizza. Dungeon Craft, I think, is a channel with the Professor Dungeon Craft. His pizzas are better. Now, I understand they were using a different material and all that, but I'm going to talk about making smaller bits of terrain and why you want to make it so you can store it. Because if everything's this big hunkin' thing, like I can dump these in a box, they're lightweight, but they do take up. Um, but when you're talking about terrain features, like different kinds of grass and different kinds of that's why I said tablecloth. People are like, but it doesn't have squares on it. If you need squares, I got some hacks for that too. The battle mat I have, we got sometime after we got 5e. In other words, I played lots and lots of role-playing games, including D&D and war games, and never used a battle mat. How did I do that? So maybe I should talk about those things for the people who are like, no, it's mine. What are you doing, Grandma? Well, in our current play group, we've got a total of 8 people right now. That includes the person doing the DMing. And the adults are fine. The older adults, let's put it that way. We're fine. The DM can describe something. We can ask questions. We don't seem to need this as much, if at all. All right. However, the teenagers and the teenager who just became an adult, they seem to need this more. But we don't want to be building whole dungeons. And I'll get into that too. My take on the model building and how to use it, well, the way I prefer to use it. And it's a bit different than what I've seen everybody else do. It's a bit different because sometimes everybody gives too much away, and it depends on what you're doing. But for the most part, we use it just enough to help them understand where their dude is relative to the other dude. Okay, so if you had 2 dudes here, all right, and that there's something between them. So we're using it to help build their tactical minds. To hopefully eventually it can mostly go away unless it's a game that really needs it, some aspect of a game that really needs it. Like if you're doing something that's more like Navy spaceship, moving units of I mean, you're actually wargaming in some aspect for real. I love minis. I have a lot. I've got one I'm working on right now. I think it's a knight. I gotta find the paint colors I want to use on him. He's primered now. I paint to relax. I craft to relax. I make things. So if you really like using stuff like this, and sometimes I like using stuff like that. In fact, there's even something I want to do with my for an adventure, as part of an adventure. That's going to require me to have to make terrain to mechanically do the thing I want to do. But it'll be awesome. So, like, I should make that thing and, like, gradually film it over time so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then have the players play it when it's my turn. And I'm trying to just decide if I want to do it. I think I'm on for an Arduino adventure or for a groups adventure. I might do it for the groups. Because it might thematically fit better for what I'm thinking about GURPS, doing with GURPS. But yeah, so tip number 1, hit your dollar store. Wander around it and think to yourself, can I make something out of this? Then hit your arts and crafts store and buy cheap paints. Not to paint your minis, though I have painted plenty of minis with cheap acrylic craft paints. I know, it's evil, but hey, I've done it. You can do it. Uh, but for the train, it's because you can buy a lot of one color if you know you're going to be using a lot of certain colors. You get the big jugs like gray, white and black. Just buy white and black and mix it, and you know what? It comes out. It comes out fine. Get some Dixie cups. Get paintbrushes. It's so easy to do this stuff. So yeah, maybe I'll build a pyramid out of something. Step pyramid. But what would be cool is I could build a triangle one. I'll think about what I could build that out of. But yeah, you could do a whole Mayan thing, seriously, with these things, and it comes out looking good. A whole jungle thing. If you want to do that, Indiana Jones it. But that's my first tip. Get these. Do terrible things to them. An X-Acto knife. You're going to need an X-Acto knife or a carpet cutting knife. Use that too. Get a cutting board underneath these when you're cutting them. Safety. Be safe. Don't go to the ER. They should be pretty easy to handle for most of y'all. And make some walls. Make some portable walls. It is an easy hack. So that is my first little tip. But yeah, my second tip is don't make YouTube videos that say you're doing immersion when you're doing terrain. Not that I didn't have the patience to sit through the whole terrain and see what different terrain techniques they were using than I use. But then, like I said, they destroyed a Lazy Susan to make all these terrain pieces that were round that go on the Lazy Susan. They also had an issue too where, isn't this immersive? And okay, look, I'll be the first one to tell you, taking turns moving your armies around when you're doing that kind of game, it's fun. All right. But that's not what was going on at that table. What I saw was a big table, really cool nature setup, one guy moving the stuff around. And granted, they were still shots, so I do have to, but everybody else who was playing, they were all lined up against the wall, far away, because you couldn't roll your dice on that, and they were just watching. Now they should have all been there around the table, moving their stuff around. That would be immersion in a war game. Immersion for role-playing is totally different. You can have the little Hot Wheel cars and stuff for that part of the game, for the tactical. I have a lot of games that mix. They're older, and they definitely have a tactical side to them for things like car chases, spaceship movement, army movement, Star Frontiers. It's got several modules like that. Where they included tactical aspects that you could put out and do those things. I'll also talk about other options besides plastic and metal people. Warhammer people, why aren't you making paper armies at this point? I don't understand. You guys are going broke. Game shop, was it Game Workshop? Oh, don't let them do that to you. Don't let them do that to you, man. Though I know the models are cool. I've seen them. They're cool. So I get it. On that aspect. But they're so expensive. So expensive. I'm going to try to give you hacks. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is because the kids, they're having a great difficulty visualizing tactical stuff. So we need to give them a little visual aid, is what's going on. And even when I was playing youngers, we would, from time to time, get things out when there was problems, like somebody couldn't figure out where the dragon was versus this thing versus that thing. And sometimes, even if it's just a piece of paper and the DM's drawing, well, the dragon's right here, you guys are over here, in this order, and this other thing's, the princess you got to rescue is over here, whatever. And then there's these things in the way, and where they just made some marks on the paper so people could go, oh, okay, because sometimes you explain it like 20 different ways and you're still getting the glazed deer caught in the headlight look. So when that's happening, you might, if you've been doing theater of mind, you might be dealing with people who, for whatever reason, it's a bad day for their brain, or they just haven't exercised that part of their brain enough to access it consciously in a controlled manner yet. And we've got to build that skill. We've got to build that brain power. So that's when this stuff can come in handy. And if you like to craft and make things, which I do, I'll randomly go, I got an idea, and then it's like it'll sit on the shelf for like the longest time. I finally get to use my idea, that I built, So, for 5 seconds. But, if you take pleasure in making little models and stuff, I get it, because I do. If you don't do it. But you may still have to draw stuff or represent stuff, and I've got hacks for you if you're having those kind of players. So I'll start doing little things like this. So you can be you can pull the rabbit out of the magician's hat and help your players hopefully visualize something that they're having trouble visualizing, if that makes sense. But yeah, there was no reason to destroy that. I could find no good reason to destroy that dining room table or the Lazy Susan. And he ended up making pretty thick things that all have to be stored someplace. And I'm cool. He's got a place for that. They got this big workroom and this studio and all this stuff. That's cool. But most of us don't. So we just get to watch and go, yeah, that would be cool. And I'm cool with watching those videos too. Like there's a dude, or looking at photos. There's a dude who did Dawn Patrol. It's a huge table. It's all done up like if you were flying a plane over and looking down, and he painted it, and you can see like all the pictures of how he did it. And then they've got all the little Dawn Patrol airplanes, biplanes on stilts and stuff. It's cool, but that's a very tactical game. Do you need to play it that way? You don't. You don't. You can do it descriptively. Yes, you do. You can. So I know we did it when I was a kid. Maybe TSR would say we were doing it wrong, but it worked. Okay. So, but this thing that I saw the photos of years ago that this guy made, and it's a room, and that's all it is. It's the Dawn Patrol room, and it's all airplane stuff from World War One, and it is nifty. He might have now modern jets and stuff that they can use too on the same field, but and he painted that whole board with poster paints, arts and crafts paints. It came out looking awesome. So you don't have to kill yourself, even when you're making something huge. But I think most of us need portable, and we need storageable. I have game stuff everywhere. In my brain, I want a big medieval city, but then I'm like, really, that's not going to work. I have to figure out how to make those things and have them when I want to make something, and have them be storable. Or if they're only one use, it's okay if it's destroyed afterwards. Yeah. So we'll have to I'll do more of this. Okay, guys? So have a good Monday. I'm going to upload this, and like, subscribe, comment, let me know. I've got, and the hacks might not look the coolest, but if they get the job done and your players are imagining what's there better than what you actually made, you got them going in the right direction, because they'll need less and less stuff. And when you do create something really cool, like you spend hours making it, they'll be like, "Oh, that's so cool," right? And then you'll be like, "Yeah," So I'm going to try to make this so that you don't have to have hardly any skills to, well, let's make something more complicated as we go along, and but mostly I want you to be able to use it. And some things you may need to be able to use in a pinch. Right? Is it my flavored water, or is it a dragon today? Imagination. But sometimes people need something to be, and go, okay, that's the dragon, and we're around the corner of this wall, represented by someone's cell phone. Sometimes you need to do things like that. It just happens. So we'll get into it, and where to get emergency minis when you have no minis, how to make them, stuff like that. So have a great day, everybody. Have a good Monday, a good week. Stay awesome. Bye. Like, subscribe, comment.